Alzate to the left of the wall. Moranchuk to the right again. Action at the goal to our right. 24th minute. Alexei steps over. Alzate floats it to the back post. Header! Score! Ronald Hernandez! The Atlanta supporters shouting down the Nashville supporters. It's 1-0 to Atlanta United on a beautifully hit set piece by Steven Alzate.
That's the only goal Atlanta United needed. We'll get into the stats coming up in a bit. John, hear you there. It's another week of SDH AM as I practically spill everything here this morning all over my keyboard, which is never traditionally a good thing. And then when you spill it over your audio board, that's just as effective. Literally, the straw in my drink just kicked out the second that I started to reach for the audio board. And so you're trying to sit there and grab it and everything. And so this is makeshift drying to make sure that things don't stick. It's a Monday. John, hear you there. Thanks for hanging out with us for another go-round of SDH AM. And David's in. Yes, Atlanta wins. Miami loses. Messi and friends take a loss. And TOSU got a win for David. We got college football going on. We have madness and hysteria at the end of Leagues Cup. So here's the rundown today. Yes, we're laboring, but, you know, it's a reaction Monday. We got stuff to react to. So coming up in a bit, I believe Abe Gordon might have survived the weekend. And so Abe will be joining us, we think, and we'll find out how close to 100% Abe is. I know that Kaylor Hodges is going to join us at 10:30 to talk about the last 30 days in USL, and I know it gives him a chance to rant about what's going on at Loudoun, and it's not good. I think if he survived the trip to Nashville, Bart Keeler might be joining us at some point between 9:30 and 10:30 to discuss cards and calls and the trip to Nashville, etc. I do have some things that I want to break down with him because there was plenty to discuss and plenty to talk about when it comes to cards and calls from the weekend. One happened in the match in Nashville, and I just want to get the rules straight so everybody knows what happened on the Sam Surridge equalizer. You had a VAR removed by the PGMOL after a call was made in a match in the Premier League, and we've got a late PK call in a Premier League match and the whole Fulham-Chelsea thing. So that is a part of what's going on today. We'll talk Atlanta United. We'll talk about the Twos. It was a big win for the Twos on Saturday. They were the only match on Saturday in MLS Next Pro. They got to watch everything in MLS Next Pro on Sunday. Two of the three things that we talked about in the post-game show ended up happening. So we'll give you an update where Atlanta United 2 is in the chase for the playoffs. They have 5 matches to go, only one of them at home, September 24th against Chattanooga at the beginning of the late home and home. And these last 5 will dictate what's going on with Atlanta United. But we'll go into standings there as well. And it is transfer deadline day overseas. We've already had a lot of stuff go on, and we'll recap it and kind of look at it in real time because Big Ben chimes today. When Big Ben is done, then transfer deadline day is done. There's already been a lot of chaos that started late last night. It's worked its way through this morning. And people are shifting from spot to spot. We'll look at our friends Fabrizio Romano and Ben Jacobs and Gianluca DiMarzio because there are some MLS players that are being discussed as part of transfer deadline day and those deals that are a part of it as well. And, yeah, we are going to talk about the chaos that happened at the end of Leagues Cup 2. So we have all of that to get into this morning. Just when you thought that it was just going to be your average, Labor Day Monday, not so fast. Well, wait a second. Do I have a pencil? No, I don't. Darn it. I thought I had a pencil. But anyway, okay, so how about this? Not so fast, my friend. There we go. It's a Sharpie pen, and it's close. So that's the rundown for today. And it's going to be a complete rundown of everything that happened and is happening to get us ready for the rest of the day. Here's the rundown for the week. Tomorrow, KCD is going to join us at 9:15. And we'll break down everything that's going on in her mind. She and Jessica Charman got to call Charlotte and New England on the weekend. We'll talk about that and what else is on her mind, whether it's college or what have you. Also, our buddy Jason Stevens is going to join us at 10:30 on tape. and we are going to be discussing this go round the equity funds, and how they're getting involved in multi-club operations and organizations, things like that. And there's some more news involving that we'll get into tomorrow as well. Wednesday, it is going to be a straight up normal with Tyler Pilgrim joining us at 9:15. Hopefully, Dylan Butler will have survived the Oasis concert in the Meadowlands at 10. And then Thursday is your Power Hour. Friday is our visit from our friends at Major League Soccer, hopefully from our friends at Beyond Goals Mentoring. Get you ready for a truncated schedule in MLS because you can opt into playing in an international break. You have 4 matches in Major League Soccer this weekend, plus a friendly with DC United. So 9 teams are doing something this weekend in Major League Soccer. 4 matches that count. Check your fantasy teams to see if it applies for this week. And then you've got DC on a friendly. So that's the rundown of this week. That's the rundown of this morning. And that's where we are here as we are on every Reaction Monday. Morning, D. Graham. Morning, David. Morning, Ropes. So getting into the Atlanta United matchup, and we do have sound from Ronnie Dyla and Ronald Hernandez. I don't know if, frankly, there's going to be any time to play that. I mean, we might end up playing it tomorrow as a part of our review of Major League Soccer, but there's a lot to get into this morning and a lot to keep an eye on this morning. So that's what we're going to be staring at. So I guess that officially is the warning of the week is opening kickoff, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. That's your QR code for those of you who are hanging out with us here on a Reaction Monday. Hit that QR code that gets your day started with Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15 when you check out, because you can buy out the whole store and then you use the code SoccerDownHere15. You get 15% off your purchase. They in turn take 10%, reinvest it. Youth games, youth initiatives, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Don't forget the other promos that we have going on. You can go to Olive and York. You can get your jersey with SDH, brought to us by our friends at Kaiser Permanente. And you can go to Fanatis and add to your complete degenerate nature of watching anything and everything at fntz.co/soccer down here. That includes our buddy Nino Torres at Gold TV. All right, so we're gonna get an actual check-in here because he is hydrating, and I didn't know, I legitimately did not know if he was going to make it, because, and he had proclaimed this at the end of the week, he was gonna take the weekend off. That he was going to enjoy the fruits of his labor, so he would not have to labor today. But because of what happened on the weekend, here comes Abe Gordon, 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app. How are you, partner?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I can't complain about what happened on Saturday night. An hour later, obviously because of Central Time, but 3 points better, and it was a fun one. It was an interesting match to watch.
And so where do you want to start? Do you want to start between the sticks with Jaden Hibbert, or do you want to go with, all right, so we'll start with Jaden Hibbert. That was easy.
Yeah, I just, you look at the difference between the two teams and the opportunities and essentially why you were able to come away with 3 points. And I think it was Jaden Hibbert. You look at coming to the top of the box on Surridge when he's got a breakaway. It's a one-on. And forcing an early shot, goes off crossbar, doesn't go into the back of the net. The funniest part to me was the save later on Hani Mukhtar. Trailing leg gets it. The hand gets a touch to it, and it goes wide. And Mukhtar had one of those glances where he just, I don't know what I have to do to get the ball past this guy. And for those of us who've been watching United for a length of time, we've seen those performances before. It's rarely from our guy. We've had those moments where we like, I don't know how to score on this guy. This guy's having the best game of his career, blah, blah, blah. It's happened multiple times. It never feels like it happens with United. And not to say that Guzan didn't have some moments like that. He certainly did. But it felt like Saturday night was one of those games where it's just like Nashville's sitting there, and I'm sure their fans are sitting there like, I don't know what we got to do to get one past this guy. That's what it felt like for Hibbert. And he came up big, no doubt about it.
Yep. Here's the rundown for Jaden Hibbert. Punched an 8.2 on SofaScore, and this was with the yellow card. And this might even fall into reffing down here with you as well. We'll get to it in a sec. Goals prevented, 1.47 on the day. Had one successful run out, one high claim, 6 saves from inside the box, 40 touches, 17 of 28 passing at 61%. 5 long balls were accurate on the day. Had one clear and won an aerial duel on the day. And so Jaden Hibbert, an 8.2 with a yellow card that he gets for time wasting.
Yeah, I try and come to terms with how I would handle time wasting if I were an official. The problem with giving out a yellow so early is you can't possibly give out another yellow later in the match for time wasting. And so you're kind of stuck with, I told you once before, don't make me tell you again. And I'm like, well, you're not going to tell me again because there's no, even that guy, there's just no official in the world who's going to show red for time wasting. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, I don't know, kind of save it until you really need it. And, 20 minutes later, and you give that yellow and people understand, but that early it made no sense. And again, you certainly can't show red, in the 84th minute because you think a guy's time wasting. So it felt like you wasted it a little bit.
Yeah. And so that's, something that we'll probably get into with Bart when he shows up as well. Back line, let's run through the starting lineup.
Yeah.
And the layout was Amador, Mihai, Stian Gregerson, Ronald Hernandez. The 4 in front of them, basically, it was your 2 of Alzate and Sleesh. Then you end up with Miggy, Luke, and Miranchuk, and Jamal up top. You look at this back line again, Mihai and Gregerson, once again, they seem to be in a bit of a rhythm right now, and you're seeing Mihai see what Hani Mukhtar is up to and falling down and having gravity issues, and Mihai ain't taking anything of it. What have you thought about this back line since Mihai has been a part?
Yeah, it's the central defensive 4. I mean, on Saturday it was Mihai and Gregerson, but it was also Sleesh and Alzate above them, and those 4 through your backbone were, and it's something we talked about, right? We wanted to see Alzate get his time in with Sleesh and see what he had to offer. This was a team in Nashville that was 4th in MLS in score in the Eastern Conference in scoring. Surge had 20 goals. Mukhtar had 14 goals, 11 assists on the season, whatever the numbers were. This is not a team at home with 10 wins and only 1 loss on the season that you clean sheet, right? Like it's just not a team that gets clean sheeted at Geodis Park. And so, you look at it and certainly, like we just said, credence is paid to Hibbert for the job that he did because he has to stay big for it to be a clean sheet. But I'm also sitting here saying I'm only talking about 2 saves. I'm only talking about 2 chances. I don't really think back to the game and say they should have scored here. They should have scored there. They should have. It was 2 times. And Hibbert came up when you needed him to. Other than that, it felt pretty solid. It felt pretty good. And that's got to give you some confidence. The first road win of the season, right? And we talked about it. Is this team really going to go 37 matches or 34, whatever the number is, with 0 road wins? Last team in MLS to get one. They wiped all of that away against the team that for a stretch of the season had been the best team in the Eastern Conference. For a stretch of the season had looked like MLS Cup contenders. And a lot of it is, as you say, because of that back line, because of that backbone. They have been solid. Mihai has come in, and Alzate too, and completely changed the confidence of we don't have to outscore teams. We just need to convert the 1 or 2, 3 chances that we get, and we can have some success. And I think that's pretty promising rolling into, obviously, I'm not going to get into the elimination number and all that crap. You're not making the playoffs. Just settle down, understand that. But it does give you a little something to think about for next season. There's no doubt about that.
And Ronnie Dyla, after the match, admitted as much, to where he said that Steven Alzate is still not 90 minutes fit. And you're getting the effort from Alzate that includes the set piece that leads to Ronald jumping to the second floor to put it past Joe Willis. And if I remember Ronnie correctly, post-match, he said that Steven Alzate could be one of the best midfielders in Major League Soccer once he gets acclimated to what's going on over here. Obviously, that's high praise. That's why you want to bring in a guy that you had at Standard Liège. But, what you're seeing Alzate work his way through and get into the rhythm of Atlanta United in stages. And this was another one of those that happened up in Nashville on a big win.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when you hear the term or think about one of the best midfielders in MLS, you think about moving forward, right? You think about the attack and what they provide, but that's not really what you're asking Alzate to do. You want him to lock it down. You want him to control the game from that defensive midfield position, the same way you've seen Sleesh, but he gets up in there as well. And you'll see Alzate get forward too. Like you mentioned, he had the assist on that one, but it's a fascinating choice of words to talk about a guy being one of the best in MLS when it's not goals and assists. It's not just pure numbers. There's so much more impact to a game than just those two statistics. And I think that's what you're looking for from Alzate. And I think if you get a guy that also, because I think Sleesh has been held back a little bit because he's had to play so much defensive midfield. I think if you can let Sleesh play a little bit higher up and not necessarily in positioning, but just let him have the confidence to move forward when he feels like there's an opportunity there, that's only going to increase your opportunities, because I think we've seen when Sleesh gets up there, he can be dangerous. And Alzate being that guy that Sleesh has had to be, now let Sleesh be a different guy. And now you start to say, all right, now we got a midfield. These guys are then going to connect with Moranchuk, who's going to connect with Latte or
Mickey or Luke
or Saba or Luke or Thierry or whoever it is. And now you're in a situation where as Atlanta United, you're starting to get numbers forward. That's something we haven't necessarily felt comfortable doing, I think. And for Sleesh's sake, I hope he has to run less now that he has Alzate there, because the 8K, the 10K, the 12K, whatever he's putting up on a weekly basis, if Alzate can help cover that and cover it confidently, along with Stian and Mihai behind him, with Hibbert playing as well as he has, now you start to feel like, okay, we're coming in and it may only take one. It may only take one to win this. There's been so many matches, John, where you're like, one goal's not winning this, man. And it's great that we got out to a lead or took something to halftime, not going to hold. You're starting to feel that maybe some of these will hold.
Abe Gordon, 92.9 The Game, and the Odyssey app, dropping by, as he always does, betting leadoff on Monday, trying to be properly hydrated, coming off of the tail end of a weekend, the last day of a holiday weekend, except for some, not for all. When it comes to performances this season, where would you put this performance when it comes to the wins and complete performances and all that kind of stuff? Where would this go in the Abe Gordon rankings?
Yeah, not that high, to be honest.
Okay.
The 3 points are 3 points. I don't think you outplayed Nashville. I don't think you outperformed them, and we're sitting here and saying we deserved, rightfully so, these 3 points. I think there were so many matches, John, throughout the middle and early portions of the season where you sat there and said, we outplayed this team and didn't get anything to show for it. I just have a tough time putting this up there. I thought Nashville came out. You were lucky to get out of the first 15 minutes with that thing still scoreless. I mean, they were all over you. I think the final tally on corners was 11-1. I mean, they were threatening big time. So it wasn't a situation where I felt like deserved winner outplayed the opponent. It was probably due for a 0-0 draw. You just happened to score in the 24th minute. So performance-wise, I'm not crazy about it. But at the same time, there's been so many games, matches earlier in the season I was crazy about that you didn't get anything to show for it. I'll certainly take it.
12-1 corner.
Yeah.
That was the number. And obviously, statistical possession for me is like looking at college football. I don't care. It's what you do with it when you've got it. And because Nashville had 59% possession, Atlanta United had 41%.
Well, every match always, the possession numbers are always nonsense as soon as the first goal is scored, right? Because everything changes at that point. So you pay attention to possession for 24 minutes. Once Ronald Hernandez puts one in off Alzate's boot into the back of the net, possessions are relevant from that point forward.
Yep. And you go 5 big chances for Nashville compared to 1 for Atlanta United. 2 of those end up, you were talking about the Hibbert saves. You end up with the shot off the crossbar from Surridge. You end up with the one at the near post late that you were discussing with Hani Mukhtar. That's 2 of those 5 right there that you were having Jaden Hibbert come up with saves. Total shots 19-10, 7 saves for Jaden compared to 3 for our late 19th century Snidely Whiplash villain and Joe Willis. 25 fouls, 14 called on Atlanta United, 29 tackles, 15 for United. And obviously that flips your free kicks into 14 there. 7 yellows for Atlanta United in this one. 7 yellows.
Yeah, I think like 2 or 3 of them was like, I didn't mean to pull out a card, but it's out here now, and I kind of have to show it. Yeah, there were some very questionable ones. We talked about the Hibbert. And I don't mind Hibbert getting a yellow for time wasting. It's just way too early. You can't do that in the 50th, 60th minute, because then, as we mentioned, you then can't show it in the 84th, 85th minute. I think Miggy and Tia Ray may have got one. I think Miggy got one in a play he wasn't even involved in. I wasn't exactly sure what was going on there. Look, we're not going to sit here and complain. You may. And I know Bart's coming on later, and he will.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and complain about the officiating in a match where you took 3 points on the road for the first time this season. So I don't want to press my luck on that one.
So it's Jamal, Miranchuk, Miggy, Ronald, Bart, Amador, and Hibbert. Basically, you started, you need one now. That's what it got to at this point from Ismir Pekmic. Basically, it's like, you're starting 11. Okay, here's a yellow card. I mean,
and like, if we're gonna criticize the officiating, and I don't personally mind it because it was late, but then he blew final whistle before stoppage time had gotten there. Like, if you say 7 minutes, play 7 minutes. He blew it at like 6:42 or whatever the number was. I don't know how that maths, but there you go.
Yep. So you look at this, and it's folks now heading off to national team duty. Ronald Hernandez getting the call up for Venezuela. Then that's obviously a big feather in his cap because he's going in for 2 of the most impactful CONMEBOL matches his country is having in recent memory. And so now you've developed this win. Everybody goes off to international duty, and then they're going to come back for Columbus. I'm going to be intrigued now with this win and the folks that go away, what they look like when they come back. Is there an extra chip on their shoulder? Are they walking a little taller? Are they standing up a little straighter? That's what I'm going to be interested in this week of international play leading back to the matchup with Columbus.
Yeah, I think you talk about it time to time, and you even got some youngsters doing their duty as well on youth teams, all throughout the academy and the twos and all that. It's always an opportunity to get a different look and gain some confidence. And it's like, I've never really been a Venezuela fan. Like, that's not the team that I root for, but like, obvious, I know it's tough, but with Hernandez getting called up and you start to side glance at it and say, all right, come on, let's go ahead and get one here. And certainly it's an exciting moment for him. And he gets called up before what happened Saturday night. It's not because of it. And certainly, you know, obviously the game is the game, but you do wonder if that was kind of popping through his head. He's like, walking around tall, like, I'm getting called up. Things are going well. Let's put one in the back of the net. Make sure they know that not only am I there, but I'm there, and they should probably start me.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is always is just everyone come back healthy. I think we've seen at times over the course of 3-4 seasons where they go off, and whether it's in training, which has happened, or in a match itself, guys have been nicked and unable to return. But this is such a nice result that I want to see it, right? You've got 6 matches left, 3 on the road, 3 at home, including this first one coming back at home. It's another postseason potential squad. It's another team that is going to be playing for a run at the MLS Cup, just like Nashville's going to. And you kind of want to see now that you've got a couple changes in the back, a couple changes in the midfield. You want to see, all right, you got one. When we got a couple of the guys that we wanted to see get in here. Let's see it. And so you just don't want to be deprived of that opportunity. So I think making sure everyone stays healthy, come back, run a similar or identical starting lineup as you did against Nashville, against Columbus, and let's see what these guys look like. Because if you take another one against Columbus, you start to have some of these conversations. We're starting to figure it out. We're starting to get some positive momentum. Not going to be this year, but next year, the offseason, we feel pretty good heading into it. That's what I want to feel over these last 6 games. And that's what I felt Saturday night. You're sitting there and say, John, hey, we went into one of the toughest buildings in all of MLS and took 3 points. I want to feel that once or twice more before we break for the offseason, and then be able to say they closed out the season in this manner, and I feel pretty good about it as we start the next season.
Yep, and that's going to be the run heading forward. You survived, sir. You made it. Yeah, you can continue to hydrate away and collapse on your sofa and hang out with Chipper and see what the demands are for Chipper today. So you got a week off. What are you going to do next? What are you going to do this weekend now that there is no Major League Soccer for you?
Honestly, there's a 5K near my house on Sunday, and I'm probably going to run that. That's probably what we're doing.
Wow, 3.1 miles on a non-MLS Saturday. As always, my friend, great to see you. Thanks for dropping by. I'm glad that you're okay to start the week off, anticipating having fun on the weekend. And so we'll catch up with you soon, my friend, and we'll be back at getting ready for Columbus next time you're on. Go get hydrated, and thanks for dropping by.
Yeah, always great to pick up 3 points. Always great to chat with you on a Monday, John.
All right, be good. There goes Abe. Abe made it. He survived, people. He survived the session, and that's all that matters. So Abe was in, and he made it. All right, that's the early returns on the lineup. Let's go through the starting lineup once again and go through the numbers as it was listed. And then Ronnie Deila once again did use all 5 subs. Alzate gave him 60. Tristan came in. Brennan gives you 60. Saba comes in. Barakal comes in for Stian, who gave you 70 when you're trying to lock things down for the final 20 minutes. And then Brooks and Kamen come in for Miggy and Jamal when you're trying to kind of just shore things up for the final 5. Numbers on the day. We mentioned Jaden Hibbert in the 8.2. Back line of Amador, Mihai, Gregerson, and Ronald Hernandez. Mihai, a 7.4. Pedro and Stian, 7.1s. Ronald, a 7.5. Mihai on the night. 90 minutes, 10 clearances for an AME high. 1 tackle, 1 ground duel, and 59 touches, 94% passing at 44 of 47. 1 key pass, 5 of 7 connecting on long balls from an AME high, 1 big chance created. And so that was the numbers for an AME high at a 7.4. Ronald, a 7.5, obviously. You get a little subtracted from the yellow card. You get it added with the goal. So probably under normal circumstances, it'd be like a high 7, like a 7.8 or something. So you have 5 clearances for Ronald, 1 tackle, 1 dribble passed, 5 of 9 on his duels, 2 of 3 in the air. 11 times he was dispossessed, was fouled 1 time, 63 touches for Ronald. 36 of 43 passing at 84%. 2 of 5 on long balls on the day. Had the 1 shot on target, obviously, and then 1 for 2 on the dribble. So 5 clearances for Ronald, 10 for Mihai. For Gregerson, he had 5, so that's 20 clearances. Then you add Pedro Amador and clearances, so 25 clearances among the 4 at the back for Atlanta United in Nashville at Geodis for the win. Then you end up in the midfield, obviously, Steven Alzate with a 7.6 going 60 minutes. 61 technically. 38 touches, 89% passing, and 25 of 28. The 1 key pass, understandable. The 1 shot on target, 1 successful dribble, 5 of 6 on his ground duels on the day. Fouled once and had 3 tackles. Bart with a 6.8. Played the full 90. 48 of 51 passing for Bart Sleesh, 94%, 61 touches, 3 long balls completed, 3 for 6, 4 of 7 on his duels. He won all his duels in the air, 3 for 3. Fouled once, 5 clearances, 1 block, and 2 dribbles passed. So another 5 clearances for Bart. So that's 30. if you add Bart's, and then if you add Alzate's clearances, it is, where is it? Okay, so Alzate was more on the ground and getting stuff done there. So 25 clearances among Sleesh, Hernandez, Gregerson, Mihai, and Amador. 25 clearances with those 4 individuals. Luke Brennan at 6'2", Miggy a 7.4 with a yellow, Miranchuk a 7'1 with a yellow, Jamal a 7'3 with a yellow. So that's what you're looking at with that starting 11. And once again, we mentioned the changes. Muyumba for Alzate, Saba for Luke, Barakal for Gregerson, Brooks for Miggy, Togashi for Jamal. Brad Gazan, Nick Sessick, Will Riley, Leo Afonso were there and did not participate. So that is the rundown for Atlanta United in their win against Nashville SC. And in the interest of equal time, we do have the other goal on the board. And this is Evan Weston and Jalil Anibaba, courtesy of our friends at Apple TV and Major League Soccer.
Do a little bit more than you maybe would, and that's what we're seeing on both sides of the line.
Alzate again. High header and a goal! Ronald Hernandez! And the Five Stripes take the lead at Jonas Park. Just the second goal in Ronald Hernandez's MLS career.
This is very good service to the back post, and Hernandez is the first to rise up and pound it home. Look at this service. It's teasing. Joe Willis has to stay on his line, and the back line is now turning, trying to find their men, the ball, the reference, and exactly understanding where they are. The only person who is not needing any second to react is Hernandez. That's the reason why he's first to it. You can see exactly what it means to him, and this is what a rivalry match looks like. I told you, nobody is looking at the table, and I can guarantee you,
Jalil Anibaba and Evan Weston on Apple TV and Major League Soccer. Abby, to answer your question, it's 25, but here's your breakdown. 14 fouls called on Atlanta United, 11 called on Nashville, 2 yellows for Nashville on 11 fouls, 7 yellow cards on 14 fouls for Atlanta United. I'm going to reserve any kind of discussion until Bart is well enough to visit. Half of the fouls called on Atlanta United result in yellow cards. Half. 7 of 14 from Ismail Pekmic. That is insane. That is an insane percentage, first and foremost. The fact that you gave 7 yellows to one side, is ridiculous. That's nuts. But the fact that you do it on half of the fouls that you call on a particular team, that to me is that's skewed for one. I'll use that word. Let's say it's skewed. Skewed. That's the term that we'll use when it comes to skewed. 7 of 14 fouls result in yellow card issues. And they were all starting lineup 11. Starting lineup 11's got 7 of the yellow cards. 7 yellows. 7 of the yellows to the starting 11 individually, including Jaden Hibbert for time wasting early. Jamal, Alexi, Miggy, Ronald, Bart, Pedro, Jaden Hibbert. I think that's all 7. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes. So Jaden had an 8.2 according to SofaScore and a yellow. Ronald had a 7.5 and a yellow. Miggy had a 7.4 and a yellow. Amador 7.1. Alexi is 7.1. Jamal is 7.3. Everybody's in the 7s except for Bart, who had a 6.8 and got a yellow card. Like I said, I don't know what SofaScore's gauge is when it comes to numbers and things like that. Do you allow this? Oh, then that's a minus. I mean, I know like in gymnastics, if you miss certain things, it's a deduction here, a deduction there. I don't know what the deductions are. But for Ismail Pekmic to give 7 yellows on 14 fouls, that's a bit imbalanced. I'm just saying. Do we have anyone out next match for the yellow card accumulation? That's a good question, Abby. I do not know. And let's see. That's going to take some research. So I'll write that down as something to look at. So let's see. Yellow card accumulation. I have to write this down. Remember, today is transfer deadline day. We'll go through what we know. Looks like Donnarumma might be heading to Manchester City, as Ederson might be heading to Fenerbahce. And that's just one of the dominoes. Yellow card accumulation for Columbus match. Okay. All right. So the yellow card accumulation for Columbus. Wrote it down. All right. That's where Atlanta United is at the moment. Kaylor Hodges set to join us at 10:30. Bart, if he's alive, will join us between now and then. And like I said, we got a handful of calls and cards to get into from the weekend, including the Surridge handball. And I wanted to discuss the rule when it comes to handball and natural position and things like that. So if Bart is alive, what we've got on the run is the Fulham-Chelsea moment with Josh King, skill move versus careless challenge, the removal of a VAR from the PGMOL because of that, the late PK in Manchester United and Burnley, and then obviously the Surridge goal, and if there's anything else. And I know that D. Graham had mentioned something in the NWSL that I did not know about. And then we can take a peek at that too. So D. Graham mentioned a moment in the Kansas City match, refereeing a really bad place where they're starting to build their star power when they're supposed to go unnoticed. The KCPK being given was atrocious too. Okay. So KCPK, that one I do not know about. I'll have to do some research on Kansas City current and PKs. Okay. Let me do this. We'll talk about the twos, and then we'll get into transfer deadline, and there's a lot to get into. It starts with Alexander Isak last night, and it's building its way forward. We'll give you updates as we go this morning. We'll kind of be drifting in and out of transfer deadline day because, like I said, Big Ben strikes, transfer deadline day is over. MLS is involved in a move to Italy that is being talked about. So we'll go through what is being talked about and where things stand. And if anything advances before we get off the air, we'll kind of go through it again once Kaylor leaves us. And for the last 15 minutes of the show, we'll duck back into transfer deadline day. The twos, big win for them on the weekend. I'm not going to play my goal calls because it's weird hearing the sound of my own voice. It kind of weirds me out a little bit. So here's what happened. 2-0 win for Atlanta United 2 at the Fraction on Saturday. Started before Nashville. And so basically, I tried to get us off the air as quickly as possible so you could go back and listen to the rest of the Atlanta United match in Nashville. Cooper Sanchez scores his first in the 8th. Toto Majoub turned into Totinho. The new nickname for Toto Majoub is now Totinho. And he scored in the early 40s. 2-0 at the break on Huntsville City Football Club. They win it 2-0. They frustrate one of the most prolific offenses in the Eastern Conference that includes Alan Carlton. Frustrated them completely, clogged the middle, forced everything out wide, easy to pick apart, and it was a great performance by Jose Silva's crew. They've now won 4 of 5 in MLS Next Pro. What does that mean? It means that they are right on the precipice of the playoffs. Go through the standings, and they were the only match. They played 2 of the first 4 matches in the week in MLS Next Pro. They played midweek weekend. They were the first one to play on Saturday. Only one to play on Saturday. Everybody else played on Sunday. So going into Sunday, there were a couple of matches that they had to keep an eye on. And there are some matches in MLS Next Pro this week that are kind of mopping up some of the matches that are matches in hand. Crown Legacy and Core on Thursday is one that Atlanta United 2 has to keep an eye on. We'll get into the why in a bit. And then Crew and Messi and Friends 2 on Sunday, and the Revs and Huntsville City on Monday, a week from today. And actually, it's a night game at Gillette. It's not the 11 o'clock start that we traditionally would see on like a weekday. But there are a couple of those matches you've got to keep an eye on in the Eastern Conference. You got to keep an eye on Crew in Miami. Crew is eliminated from any kind of postseason in MLS Next Pro. I think they can drag Messi and Friends 2 down with them if they win on Sunday the 7th. So keep an eye on these matches. Thursday, Crown Legacy and Core. Saturday, you're good. Sunday, the match below them with the two teams that are below them in the standings. And then the Revs hosting Huntsville a week from today on Monday. So going into Sunday, after the win for Atlanta United 2, they were a point out of the playoffs with that win. They had to keep an eye on the rest of the Eastern Conference. Revs 2 and Chicago Fire 2 tied it 2 after 90 minutes. Fire 2 get the extra point, winning 3-1 in PKs. They had to keep an eye on Toronto FC 2 and NYC FC 2 at York University, York Lions Stadium. TFC 2 gets the win, and it was a brace for Marcus Zimmer-Mancic. And TFC 2, the Young Reds, beat NYC FC 2 to keep them right in that 8th slot, to keep them within shouting distance, grabbing distance with the back of the collar. So big win for TFC 2. Red Bulls 2 put 7 on Crew 2. I guess that makes up for all the ones that they allowed when Michael Bradley first started coaching Red Bulls 2 against the Chicago Fire 2. So 7-4. What the hell? Just like 7-4 at Montclair. Orlando City B, 1-0 winner over Crown Legacy at Osceola Heritage Park. Philadelphia Union 2 beat FC Cincinnati 2-1. Those are the Eastern Conference games they had to keep an eye on. With what happened on Sunday in the East, 2 of the 3 things that you needed to happen actually did. Red Bulls are in the playoffs at 51 points. We just don't know the where yet. Union, with their win over FC Cincinnati 2, which was big for Atlanta United 2, they are in at 46, don't know where yet. Huntsville and Chicago Fire, identical records, have to go to goal difference, which is only separated by 2. Huntsville City is 2 better in goal difference than Fire. That's your 3 and your 4. Revs 2 at 42 points. Chattanooga FC at 41. 2 of Atlanta United 2's last matches this season are against Chattanooga. September 24th at the Fraction, the last home match of the year, and October 5th, Decision Day at Fort Finley. Will be there for that one, while the first team is out in Los Angeles taking on LAFC. Chattanooga's in 6 at 41. TFC, with 24 matches played, is at 36. Orlando City B, with their win, hopscotches NYC FC 2. They're now in the 8th spot at 33 points. NYC FC 2, with their loss, drops to 9th at 32. Atlanta United 2 is in 10th, 2 points out of a playoff spot with a match in hand. So if Atlanta United 2 wins their match in hand, they are the 8th seed in MLS Next Pro in the Eastern Conference. They would go play Red Bulls 2, and Jose Silva mentioned after the match, and you can catch the full conversation that we had with him on Tuesday's review here on the network, that against Red Bulls 2, Jose Silva thought they dominated both of those matches and should have come away with more points than they did. So I think he was setting the club up mentally. When they go in for the 8th seed, they would be playing at Montclair, because you would imagine in the pick your opponent part of this whole thing that Red Bulls 2 would pick Atlanta United 2. But who knows? They look at the matchup, they might pick somebody different. You just don't want Philadelphia Union 2 picking you in the opening round. I'm fairly confident Red Bulls 2 would pick Atlanta United 2 as the 8th. But right now, Atlanta United 2 in 10th, match in hand, 2 points out of the playoffs. And they need wins, because if they were to be even with points with OCB has more wins than them, 9-7. So keep an eye on wins is the first tiebreaker. Then it goes to goal difference. Then it goes to goals scored. Wins, goal difference, goals scored. So Atlanta United 2 right now, 2 points out of the playoffs with a match in hand. Core is underneath them at 30 points. Crown Legacy is underneath them at 29 points and 6 wins. Same for FC Cincinnati 2. So you have 6 teams separated by 4 points trying to get that 8th seed. What you were looking for was TFC to get some space, beating NYCFC 2. You got that. You didn't get Orlando City B being held to a 90-minute result OCB gets the win. They hopscotch NYCFC 2 and Atlanta United there in the 8th at 33. Core, Crown Legacy, FC Cincinnati 2 are behind you, but they're 1 or 2 points behind you. And you have a match in hand on Crown, even with matches played with Core and FC Cincinnati 2. And you're even in matches played with NYCFC 2. There'll be a test later on. But the bottom line is 2 of the 3 things that you needed to have happen yesterday in the Eastern Conference happened. The only thing that didn't happen was Orlando City B not getting a 90-minute result. 2 points out of the 8th seed, match in hand, 6 teams, 4 points chasing after the 8th seed in the East. That's what you've got with Atlanta United 2 right now. And that's the stretch run for you. 5 matches to go. Teams confident that they can get results in all of them, get the win at home, get to decision day. Once again, decision day, October 5th, 1 o'clock, 103 kick at Fort Finley. Pregame show will be at 12:30 on the network, and we'll be there at Fort Finley for that one. Last game of the regular season for Atlanta United 2 in the Eastern Conference, and hopefully we'll have postseason stuff to talk about with the Twos. So that was a very, very busy stuff. When is the Twos' next match? Twos' next match is I think it's not this weekend, but next, if I remember correctly. So, all right. So the next match for the Twos is on the 13th at Truist Point, taking on Core. So all of the folks below the playoff bar right now, they're going to be knocking each other around. 2 weeks, Core taking on Atlanta United 2 at Truist Point, traditionally a very tough place to play. Then after that, they go to Matthews to take on Crown Legacy. Here are the rest of the matches for Atlanta United 2. International window, and you're going to see Cooper Sanchez. Cooper Sanchez, I believe, is called into camp, and so you're having other players being called into camp. Good stuff there. At Core on the 13th, 7:30. At Crown Legacy on the 20th, 7 o'clock. Home to Chattanooga on the 24th in the midweek at 5th Third, 7:30 Eastern Time, pregame at 7, kickoff at 7:33. Then the weekend, 3 matches, 8 days. They go to Bridgeview to take on the Chicago Fire 2. Then it is decision day on October 5th. So nothing this weekend. Next home match, the 24th. 2 really important road games, Core and Crown Legacy, on the 13th and the 20th. Then you go to Bridgeview, and then you go to Chattanooga to wrap up the season. So just one more home match for Atlanta United 2 in the regular season this year at the Fraction on the 24th against Chattanooga FC. So that is the rundown. Morning, Lokeville. And that's the rundown for Atlanta United 2. Well, and Abby, remember, Kennesaw State needs it for the American football in Conference USA. So that is that they need their barn. That's why the grass is new and it doesn't have as much paint and spots and everything. Yeah, Kennesaw needs their home field for American football in Conference USA. So yeah, one more home match for the Twos, and it's on the 24th in the midweek against Chattanooga FC. So that's your rundown there. Whew, that's a lot. Very, very cool. Abby says, spoke with Josh after the match, had the hand in the arm feel good. And so the Twos moved up to Twos are in 10th. From 12th, they moved up to 12th and 13th. They moved up to 10th. So that's where things are with the Twos and the schedule and everything in the chaotic East. So like I said, literally TFC2's win against NYCFC2 kept NYCFC2 as a part of the discussion. Then kind of gave a little space. That was fine. You root for Philadelphia up against FC Cincinnati 2 to keep FC Cincinnati 2 down. You root for TFC going up against NYCFC 2 to keep NYCFC, who was the 8th seed going into Sunday, to keep them as a part of the pack. TFC 2 winning, fine. That's fine, whatever. The Orlando City B result was the only thing that was what you didn't want in the sense of, keeping everything together. It still does. It's just that now you have a different team that is 2 points ahead of you instead of NYCFC 2, who was only 1 point ahead of you. But still, match in hand, take care of your match in hand, then you would be the 8th seed as of the time that match is made up, as of right now. So once again, 5 matches left, 2 on the road. Truist Point to take on Core, Matthews to take on Crown Legacy, back in the midweek on the 24th to take on Chattanooga FC in the first of the home and home. 28th is Bridgeview, and then you're back for decision day at Fort Finley on October the 5th. Catch the highlights, the 2 goal calls from some dude that doesn't like the sound of his own voice, plus some post-match. You hear from Jose Silva, you hear from Cooper Sanchez, you hear from Tota Majub. That's on the network, and you can go back into your favorite podcatchers and keep an eye on all of that stuff involving Atlanta United too. Kaylor Hodges set to join us once again, bottom of the hour, and that is we'll keep an eye on with everything going on USL Championship and League One and all that kind of stuff. We'll talk to Kaylor about that. Now, transfer deadline day. There's a lot going on, and hang on just a second. Peacock. All right, so Peacock, by the way, is press and hold again. Peacock. There we go. Peacock is airing the Sky Sports Deadline Day special starting in 4 minutes. So I figured while I was thinking about it, I would turn my head and turn them on the Big 55 so we can keep an eye on what's going on. We'll go over all of the moves that happened starting last night with Alexander Isak, and that was the first domino of what could end up being an incredibly chaotic final day here in the transfer window over in Europe. And no, I don't want the Premier League, and I don't want that. Where is? No, that's not what I want. So, okay, so if I hit this, there we go. Okay. All right, so the deadline show from the Premier League, once again, kicking off at the top of the hour. We're going to keep an eye on that today. Let's go over all of the moves that have happened in the overnight. We still have our Leagues Cup discussion to get into. That is definitely going to be a part of things as we go. So, transfer updates as we have them. Liverpool have agreed on a $130 million pound deal on Alexander Isak. Newcastle have reached an agreement with Jan Vissa and Brentford. We'll get into the numbers in a bit. Villa is working to close the Harvey Elliott loan from Liverpool. Manchester United is not going to be going after Emi Martinez because it looks like they're going to bring in Seme Lamens. That is going to be discussed. It is not quite official yet. And Villa is also on the verge of a deal for Jadon Sancho. So Manchester United, why did they make a late move for a keeper? First off, you asked Drew Dickinson. That screaming that you heard was him. Not happy with Onana and Bayindir. So you're looking at Sene Lamens, who was always on the list, apparently, for Ruben Amorim. Wages for Emi Martinez were an issue, harder point of negotiation. United couldn't afford the transfer fee demanded by Villa unless Onana was sold. Loan offer to Villa rejected in July. Martinez's character was seen as a plus by Ruben Amorim. So you were looking at also Diogo Costa and Gianluigi Donnarumma. They were also considered. Donnarumma's salary way above United's pay structure. Strasbourg has completed the signing of Julio Enciso from Brighton for an undisclosed fee. 4-year deal, seen as a part of Strasbourg's project after they qualified for Conference League group stage on Thursday. Blue Co., the parent company who owned Chelsea and Strasbourg, once again a part of the multi-club operating and ownership model that we talk about with our buddy Jason Stevens, has agreed with a fee with Brighton for the player and also finalized personal terms. Spurs winger Brian Heel set to join Girona on a permanent in a deal that could reach up to €10 million. Spanish club will pay an upfront fee of around $4 million in add-ons. 24-year-old spent the 24-25 campaign on loan at the Catalan club, where he scored 4 goals in 32 appearances. Fulham have agreed on a permanent for Chelsea's Tyreek George. Package worth £22 million plus a sell-on. Fulham have terms in place with the 19-year-old academy grad on a 5 with a medical to follow. George made his first appearance of the season Saturday as the first half sub following Liam Delap's injury, later withdrawn for Andre Santos. Signed a new deal in June of 24, which runs until the summer of 27. Bayern Munich's Nico Jackson move is back on. Optimism and deal will be agreed after it stalled on Saturday. Chelsea had granted permission for him to travel for a medical. However, they informed Bayern that they wouldn't be proceeding because of the Liam Delap injury. Jackson remained in Munich after flying to complete the move. Enzo Maresca estimated after the game Delap would be out for up to 8 weeks with a right hamstring problem. Athletic then reported Chelsea considering signing a striker if Nico Jackson was to depart on a permanent. Later, they were in talks with Sunderland over recalling Mark Guyu, and that is still in play. Isak breaks the British transfer record when the £130 million transfer is confirmed. The record hasn't lasted long. It was Florian Wirtz from Leverkusen to Liverpool for 116. That was the number one on the list until the Isak deal and when that gets closed. Brentford had maintained throughout the summer they would not allow Vista to leave unless they had a replacement. Looks like it's going to be Reece Nelson from Arsenal. Keith Andrews gets another option up front. Major concern with the move with Brentford is that Nelson missed a large chunk of last year with a hamstring injury. Hasn't played a lot over the last 3. If Brentford can get him fully fit, it'll be a good addition. Unai Emery wanted to add a creative midfielder, with Aston Villa keen to sign Paquetá and Marco Asensio prior to Fenerbahce agreeing to terms with Asensio and PSG. Harvey Elliott looks like he is going to be the answer. Villa have agreed to the loan with an obligation to make the transfer permanent next summer, traveling to the Midlands for a medical. Villa have been very quiet in the summer window, so far with only forward Evan Gesson and goalkeeper Marco Bizot the only additions for Unai Emery. Ramsey, Dendoncker, and Barrenechea moved out. Attilo Malacia's loan talks with Elche have collapsed. Regarding the left back for Manchester United, club-to-club negotiations being held at the end of last week after all parties involved unable to agree on the inclusion of a clause to make the deal permanent at the end of the season. Elche are expected to turn their attention to Sevilla's Adria Pedrosa. 26-year-old is set to be the only remaining member of United's so-called bomb squad who trained separately from the rest of Ruben Amorim's players all summer. Villa have signed Fletcher Boyd from Aberdeen. 2 clubs have been in negotiations throughout the summer for the 17-year-old midfielder. Agreement finalized over the weekend, signed on Monday. Aberdeen didn't want to lose him, and he made his senior debut against Hibs in May of 24, and Boyd was keen to move to the Midlands considering a leading talent. Aberdeen, by the way, has not been scoring at all, and they have not been winning, and it has been painful to watch for a lot of the big names in the Scottish League, in the SPFL. And Rangers are calling for heads. Celtic fans are calling for heads. Aberdeen isn't scoring any goals. And so this might be an opportunity for somebody like Hibs to work their way into European competition, if not the top of the table, if things fall a certain way. Royal Antwerp, once again, the home of Sene Lammens. Tottenham have agreed on a deal with PSG for Randall Colomawani. Chelsea have opted against a pursuit of Barcelona's Fermin Lopez. Birmingham City seeking a loan deal for Sunderland's Patrick Roberts. He's only featured once as a sub in the 3 Premier League matches this season, played 45 last year, and has not featured much this year. Villa announced the arrival of Victor Lindelof on a free, 31-year-old available without a fee after the contract expired at Manchester United at the end of last year, and he signed at 2. Unai Emery's been looking to get some defensive reinforcements. Lindelof among one of his targets. Athletic reported in July Villa made an offer for Toulouse center back JD Camveau, but the 19-year-old is set to sign for Crystal Palace. Leipzig forward Luis Openda undergoing a medical at Juve before completing a loan move obligation to make the move permanent, a clause triggered by a series of conditions. 25-year-old scored 41 and 18 in 93 matches for the German side, 3 goals in 27 matches for Belgium internationally, gets to join Jonathan David and Dusan Vlahovic. Openda looks set to be replaced at Leipzig by Sporting striker Konrad Harder, who's nearing a move to the club. Lille's Edon Zagrova, also undergoing a Juve medical before completing a permanent move. Kosovan international, his Lille contract set to expire in the summer, departs after having joined in the summer of 22. We mentioned Randall Colomawani. Let's go to our buddy Ben Jacobs and try and get the full rundown of what he has going on. Like I said, it is a very, very busy day for folks like him, where they are completely and totally just out of control on a day like this. And just to make sure that they have everything laid out, legitimately for a guy like Ben Jacobs and Fabrizio Romano and all of the insiders today, it is crazy how much content they are pouring out. Chelsea have confirmed Facundo Buonanotte is joined from Brighton on a season-long loan, no option to buy. We mentioned Victor Lindelof on a free. Fulham and Tyreek George was $22 million. We got that. It's a 5-year deal. You spread it out over the full terms of the deal, so 5 into 22 is 4.4. Significant progress made on the Nico Jackson move to Bayern. Phil still to be agreed to, but the formula will be a loan with an obligation. Statement from his agent Ali Barat. As the move draws closer, Nico was ready, Bayern was ready. We were all aligned on a world-class project. For the agreement to be withdrawn at the final moment is deeply frustrating, but we won't give up. I will fight with everything I have to make sure Nico's next step reflects his talent, ambition, and the plan we built together. We hope that Chelsea can cover Liam Delap's unfortunate injury. That sounds like Nico Jackson and his agent are like, peace out. We're in Germany. We ain't leaving. Woo. Loan with an option to buy. So keep an eye on Nico Jackson today. All parties are now confident of Jackson joining Bayern before deadline day, even with the injury. We mentioned Enciso in Strasbourg. Elliott's loan is a $35 million obligation to buy, according to David Ornstein. Still some back and forth on the final points of the deal. Optimism is that it will get done. Liverpool are now confident of finalizing the deal for Mark Gahey. This has been on and then off and now back on. Agreement expected to happen. Race against time. Medical taking place in London. Should the transfer get done? That's Jacobs and Alex Crook at Talk Sport. Liverpool have left their £35 million offer on the table from the weekend. The club is now waiting for Steve Parrish to inform them if Gahey can undergo a medical in London. This is as of an hour ago. The Visa medical is now underway at Newcastle, signing a 4-year deal, $55 million in the package. So Visa gets what he wants. Gets the move to Newcastle. Brentford gets $55 million, which is a good turn on the investment. What does Keith Andrews do to reinvest? We don't know. That's going to be the key here. What does Brentford do with the 55? Randall Colomawani is a loan deal to Spurs, according to Fabrice Hawkins first before Ben Jacobs. He wanted a permanent move to Juve for much of the summer, but no agreement had been reached with PSG. Then, let's see. So United not far off on completing the signing of Seme Lamans. Crystal Palace is now in talks for a loan for Brighton's Igor Julio. West Ham is also keen. Could give some encouragement for Liverpool and Mark Gahey, but that remains in the balance. Igor is expected to join Palace on loan without a buy option. Scanning to see if I've missed anything from the overnight. There's the Gahey deal. Let's see. Lamans is supposed to be a 5 for €21 million. No sell on. The player's traveling to Manchester, and this was before the show started this morning. Once again, we talked about Emi Martinez being considered, but the pay scale was a little too high. Sheffield United confirm Alex Matos joins from Chelsea on a 3-year deal. Ipswich outgoings expected today, and Ipswich has been struggling early on this season in the championship. Wolfenden to Coventry City. Ipswich have decided to sell despite rejecting an approach in August. Ali Al-Hamidi will join Luton on a loan with a £3 million buy clause. Finn Barbrook will go on loan to Lincoln City. Chidozie Ogbene will join Sheffield United on loan. Speaking of Ipswich, loan deal, obligation to buy for Man City's Luca Fletcher. Fletcher has been signed for Ipswich's PL2 squad and will not be a part of Kieran McKenna's plans this season. Now this is something else that you look at silly season, and I don't think it could get any sillier than what we saw with Bayer Leverkusen. Bayer Leverkusen decides after 2 matches, 2, the number following 1, 2, that they have had it with Erik ten Hag. 2 matches. 2. That's it. Done after 2 matches. What in the blue hell is going on at Bayer Leverkusen? 2 matches. 3 in all comps, but 2 league matches. 2 games in charge. Club confirmed it. Tom Hamilton this morning. Ten Hag replaced Xabi Alonso back in May, signed a 2-year deal. They won their DFB Pokal first-round tie against Sonnenhof, who's in the 4th tier. But since that match 2 weeks ago, lost their season opener against Hoffenheim at home, drew 3-3 with Werder Bremen on Saturday. Decision was made by the shareholders committee at the club and on recommendation of Bayer's management. Several of the stars who led him to the Bundesliga title left the club. Frimpong, Wirtz, Adli, Kusunu, Xhaka, Radecki, and Jonathan Tah all leave the club. So 7 out. In response, Leverkusen spent in the region of about $199 million to bring in Malik Tillman, Gerald Kwanzaa, Elias Ben Seguir, Loic Bade, Ibrahim Matza, Mark Flecken, and Ernest Poku. So 7 out, 7 in. You drop €170 million, $199 million. Leverkusen managing director for sports, Simon Rolfs. This decision was not an easy one for us. Nobody wanted to take this step. Stop right there. Then why did you? However, the past few weeks have shown that building a new and successful team with this setup is not feasible. We firmly believe in the quality of our team. We'll now do everything we can to take the next steps in our development with a new setup. What the hell does that mean? So building a new and successful team with this setup, I guess you mean Ten Hag, is not feasible. You sure as hell didn't mind dropping $199 million and bringing in 7 players. I don't know what the outbound was, but nevertheless. You dropped $199 in. As you sold 7, you brought in 7 to replace. Building a new and successful team with this setup is not feasible. Ten Hag's conservative style did not marry with the players. A source told the 4-letter Leverkusen were keen to make the change sooner rather than later. Basically, 2 matches in, 1 cup competition. You win the cup competition. You draw and a loss out of the blocks, 1 point in your first 2. You win your matchup in the Open Cup in Germany, and you're like, yeah, we're done. Surrendered 2-goal lead to Werder Bremen. Robert Andrich, the captain, after the match, everyone played for themselves. Everyone ran around the pitch on their own. We have too many players who are preoccupied with other things or only with themselves. I don't know if I've ever experienced that at Bayer. This disastrous final phase of the draw was a symbol of our current situation. This has nothing to do with any unrest, player transfers, or legal proceedings, end quote. So you don't want to give Erik ten Hag the chance to turn things around if you take what Andrich said with the proverbial grain of salt. That doesn't have to do with any unrest, player transfers, or legal proceedings. Players preoccupied with other things or only with themselves. Everyone played for themselves. But after 2 matches in league, a loss and a draw where you gave up a 3-1 lead, you're done with Erik ten Hag. Spending all that money, you have 0 faith, apparently, in 2 matches in playing a more conservative style than you did with Xabi Alonso. When a third of your match day squad is out, you bring in a new third. No patience with them whatsoever. Team captain says what he says. CEO Fernando Caro, a parting of the ways at this early stage of the season is painful, but we felt it was necessary. After having spent $199 million on 7 players. Remain committed to achieving our goals for the season, and to do that, we need the best possible conditions at all levels and across the entire first team. Now it's a matter of fully implementing and utilizing these conditions again. So the 7 dudes that are brought in, to me, that will be the next element in this. Of those 7 guys, what do they look like in the starting lineup? That's going to be my question. So Jadon Sancho, he's close to a Villa loan. Donnarumma to City hinges on Ederson. Wrexham's going to sign Manchester City's Issa Kabor on loan, apparently, according to Hamilton. Season-long loan there. I love pop-up ads. Adding to their options on the right, key signing for the championship side, right back, wing back, slots into Phil Parkinson's 3-5-2. Kabori was also attracting interest from Ipswich and Leicester. By the way, Jamie Vardy to Cremonese in the Serie A on a 1+1. Kabor joined City in 2020 from Mechelen. Since then has spent time on loan to Troyes, Marseille, Luton, Benfica, and Werder Bremen. Wrexham hopeful doing further transfer business today. They've been linked with Coventry City's Ben Sheaf, Bristol City's Zach Viner. Viner looking increasingly unlikely. Like I said, this is the day for all of this stuff. It looks like Anthony is back on at Real Betis. Looks like it has been agreed to. We'll see what happens with this permanent deal, 25 million euro. Briefly stalled on Friday. Agreement reached on deadline day. Betis set to pay a fixed fee of 22 with another 3 in potential bonuses. 50% sell-on for Manchester United in dealing with Anthony. 2 years left on a 5-year deal. Signed when he arrived from Ajax in 22. United have avoided to make a separate payment to the Brazil forward. 96 appearances in 3 years with 12 goals. Hasn't featured for United since January. Spent this second half of last season on loan at Betis. At Betis, 9 in 26, they wanted to make the move permanent, set to undergo a medical. Anthony remains United's second most expensive signing behind Paul Pogba after the £86 million move from Ajax. Omitted from Amorim's squad for the preseason tour. And once again, he was a part of that. The folks that practiced at the side at Carrington, Jadon Sancho, Turo Malacia, and Anthony were a part of that group that's just like, we don't want y'all over here, go over there. Also, you end up with, and D. Graham with the heads up on this, Angel City. Wow, that's annoying. Emily Keogh at the 4-letter. Alyssa Thompson set to miss tonight's matchup with Bay FC with an excused absence amid links with the WSL and Chelsea. Reports surfaced last week. Chelsea held an interest. The side were hoping to agree to a move. The window closed on August 25th, making it hard for Angel City, sitting in 10th, to replace her. A source told ESPN Chelsea keen on a long-term deal. However, another source told the 4-letter that Angel City were reluctant to part ways with Thompson, who has 8 goal involvements in 16 league appearances this season. Already been excused for the meeting with Bay, leading to speculation that the move is on. Chelsea already have 2 of Thompson's teammates in Noma Girma and Kat Macario. Source told the 4-letter the move is progressing, Chelsea needing to wrap up the deal by Thursday when the WSL transfer window closes. Chelsea have had long-standing interest in Thompson, having scouted her and her younger sister Giselle, who is 19. So that's courtesy of Emily Keogh at the 4-letter. So that's kind of where we are right now when it comes to all of the transfer news and things. I think we're caught up, at least in the short term, when it comes to everything that we've seen so far. This could be the craziest and most lucrative in the terms of dollars spent in the history of a transfer window. Chelsea recalls Guyu from Sunderland to help out with the striker crisis. Did you see this? Since we were on Manchester United's, since we were discussing women's soccer, I don't know if you saw this or not. Manchester United's women's team paid for their own flights back from the Champions League match that they had. This is from Catherine Batty, the women's football reporter at the Telegraph. The club's decision not to use chartered flights contrasts with Chelsea, Arsenal, and Manchester City. Paid for their own flights back from Sweden after the club failed to book a direct return from the club's Champions League qualifying matches. Due to return home yesterday, following their win over Hammarby in Stockholm, but the club had booked a flight which included a stopover meaning that players would not arrive into Manchester until 10 o'clock local time. Direct flights were available, but they would not accommodate all players and staff. As a result, United booked a flight which included a stopover. Club had put on a chartered flight for the journey out, but chose not to for the return back from the Department of Redundancy Department. Players were then told they could book their own flights if they wanted to return home earlier, many opting to do so, paying out of their own pocket. For the return, the club had an 8-day gap to their next game, so there was no immediate performance imperative to fly back via charter. Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City all did so using charters for their Champions League games last season. United are understood to have stayed in a 4-star hotel for 5 days in Stockholm, trained at the headquarters of the Swedish FA. Club's travel itinerary was discussed with the player leadership group, reflected the fact several players wanted to make their own independent arrangements. Understood United will continue to review transport arrangements on a case-by-case basis, considering both performance and cost factors. Overarching approach is to manage costs around the women's team in a financially sustainable way. This is Catherine Batty once again at the Telegraph. Latest move will only enhance the perception of a lack of interest in the women's team from those higher up at the club. Sir Jim Ratcliffe previously admitted the women's team is not a priority and a work in progress. Quote, "It's a bit unfair." Ratcliffe told the BBC in March when asked about criticism over his handling of the women's team, quote, "What I said at the beginning was my main focus is on the men's team because that at the end of the day is what moves the needle at Manchester United. The women's team is much smaller than the men's team," end quote. Last summer, United moved their women's team out of their £10 million facility into temporary buildings at Carrington to make room for the men's team while their part of the training ground was revamped. Ratcliffe has also not attended a women's game since taking over the club. United have had slow transfer windows despite qualifying for the Champions League. 2 new signings, Sweden internationals Fridolina Rolfo and Julia Zigiotti Olme. 2 impressive performances beating PSV and Hammarby. They now get SK Braun in a 2-legged qualifier later this month. They want to reach the league phase of the competition. Skinner's side begin their WSL campaign with a home game against Leicester Sunday. Manchester United have been contacted for comment. Sub-article from Catherine Batty back in December. I'll post the link, and it might be required reading for the day. Developing the women's team, not a priority, according to stuff at the Telegraph with Catherine Batty and Sir Jim Ratcliffe and what he thinks about the whole thing. There it is. There's the article in the Telegraph. And the link to it, it's in the Twitch pitch for those of you who are interested, but you can go to the Telegraph section and you can go to the Telegraph newspaper, go into the sports section, and then you can read for yourself. But apparently not a priority for Manchester United as a part of their overall branding to not have the women's team as a priority. Sadly, with the current state of affairs and what's going on, why does that not surprise me? With all the layoffs and redundancies and the meal issues, revamping of this, fixing of this, working of this, sadly, that's not a surprise. Sadly, it is not a surprise. So that is the I saw that and I was like, not a fan. Not a fan. Liverpool have agreed on a Mark Gahey deal, according to David Ornstein et al. With Crystal Palace. Gahey undergoing a medical at Liverpool after a £35 million deal, agreed with Crystal Palace for signing the defender, personal terms in place on a 5-year deal. This is what happens when your phone goes off. And it goes off on your wrist. Legitimately, that's what just happened. My phone went off on my wrist to find out about that with David Ornstein and our friends at The Athletic. This is what happens when you have one of those newfangled Android version of Apple watches, you know. You get these kinds of things, and I'm trying not to be like Inspector Gadget or anything, but that's how it's kind of turning out. Gahey undergoing a medical at Liverpool, $35 million agreed. Palace signing the defender personal terms on a 5 that'll run through 2030. So that's the latest on Gahey. 11-17. Chelsea informed Bayern Munich they're not proceeding with the loan on Nico Jackson, asked him to return. Arsenal have agreed an agreement with Bayer Leverkusen to sign Piero Hincapié. Season-long loan, option to buy, total package, €52 million, 10% sell-on clause. Jurgen Strand-Larsen had a £50 million offer of him from Newcastle to Wolves. Wolves rejected it. Christian Romero signing a new 4-year deal with Spurs, targeted by Atletico de Madrid earlier this summer. Brentford signing Dango Ouattara from Bournemouth, once again, club record deal. $37 million, 5 further in add-ons. So that's what you're staring at right now. Now, one thing we haven't gotten into, and I want to get into it before Kaylor joins us here in a couple of minutes. Leagues Cup last night. We got to get into this. And it was another masterclass by Brian Schmetzer. And we'll talk to our buddy Nico Moreno about it on Thursday. Another masterclass by Brian Schmetzer and by Seattle, taking Lionel Messi out of his game and getting the Duke in the Leagues Cup final. And you had a really cool moment late with one of the homegrown players that we've seen grow through his time at Tacoma Defiance. We talked about him with Nico. And you end up with goal number 3 happening late this way, courtesy of Apple TV Plus and Major League Soccer and Leagues Cup.
Oh, right to Lovelock. Lovelock! Paulie Primetime delivers! The Sounders are going to win Leagues Cup! Has spoken. What a show from this entire organization. Sounders 3-0.
And that was the final. And on the flip side of bringing in Kaylor Hodges, we'll talk about what happened late in the match when the match was over. And we will discuss that because it needs to be discussed. 3-0 win, Leagues Cup. 9th title for Seattle in all comps. They are the first team in this, I believe, in this country to have won 9 separate tournaments. All right, it is that time. Usually every 30 days or so, we like to catch up with our buddy Kaylor Hodges and our friends at the USL Show, and he is at Kaylor Hodges. And we do this because of everything going on in the USL Championship, League One, the Gainbridge Super League. We have to, since we got to figure out how Gainbridge can sponsor us if we're going to mention it by name. So we may just call it Super League. So there's stuff to talk about in USLS. There's stuff to talk about League One, stuff to talk about in the championship. And because Kaylor is not working his normal gig today, making sure that the youth of America are ready for the next stages of life on a daily basis, teaching them all the lessons, reading, writing, arithmetic, and Kaylor. He gets to hang out with us today and find out what's going on. So how's your day off? Looks like you just rolled out of the rack. I love the hair, by the way.
Yeah, I've been trying to get a haircut for the last 2 months, and then I just keep putting it off for another day at a time. And I'm like, I don't need it this time. And today I woke up, I'm like, maybe it's the time. It's okay.
It's all good. With everything that's gone on in USL Championship, League One, the S League getting ready, Sporting Jacks is really putting up some great attendance numbers out of the blocks. I wanted to start in USL Championship with this question, and feel free to carry the conversation, give as much depth as you want. I'm just going to phrase it this way. What in the blue hell's going on at Loudoun?
Well, we talked about this to begin the season when the Athletic article dropped with Pablo Bauer, who he put the article out there that kind of explained what's going on in the backroom staff and everything that was going on off the pitch of alleged players having to watch their own stuff. The field not in good shape. There were conversations of players talking about boycotting matches, but chose not to. And then the new ownership comes in, who owns the local youth academy, and a friend of our show, Oliver Gage, gets fired in order for some of their own guys to come in. And if you're someone who's not kind of locked into the general manager world, I doubt a lot of people are truly in that space. Oliver Gage is one of the most respected people in this country. He is one of the most data-driven general managers in this country. The way that he's been able to manipulate data to find players who are underappreciated, it was really impressive. I mean, you see it now with what's going on at Loudoun. They're a top 4 team in the East for a reason, despite never making the playoffs before. And he gets fired because reasons. And that was kind of included in the article. And what was kind of hinted at was Coach Ryan Martin was also going to be let go at the end of the season, but it just never happened. And then some official statements came out from Loudoun of, hey, this is actually our guy. We love this guy. He's great. He's wonderful. And suddenly, after the loss to Charleston, it is reported by good friend John Morrissey at USL Tactics on Blue Sky and Twitter, and co-host of the USL Show. He kind of drops that, according to sources, that Ryan Martin is to be released come the end of the season. And I personally, knowing John, he doesn't leak things. That's not his style. He doesn't like doing it. And so the fact that he was willing to leak this tells me that there were serious sources involved, which I have gotten collaborating sources on this as well, saying that this is indeed happening, despite what Loudoun's statement of he's our coach going forward. Yeah, going forward till the end of the season. Yeah. See you next year. It's an absolutely mind-boggling decision. Oliver Gage said on our show, again, former general manager, director of football of Loudoun, now at Fort Wayne with DeMarcus Beasley. And he said that getting people to Loudoun was hard because they were bad, right? They were really bad for a long time.
Right.
They didn't play attractive soccer, and they are the most expensive market to live in the USL. So getting people to go to a place where they're not going to play fun football, they're not going to win, and their money will not stretch as far as any other place, it was impossible to recruit Loudoun, and they were able to do it. And one of your spearheads of that is Oliver Gage. The other one, Ryan Martin. People wanted to play for Martin. After he was able to build what they were doing now, people wanted to play there and play for him. Now they completely scrapped it because they feel like their youth academy setup is the best way to move forward. I think there are just egos involved, and it's all going to come crumbling down in front of them, and they're going to go right back to where they were. And I would love for me to eat my words, but because there's people at Loudoun, the players at Loudoun are genuinely wonderful people. There are people who work for that club who are genuinely wonderful people. But the people in charge's egos got in their own way when they did not see they had two of the brightest young professionals that this country has to offer in Gage and Martin, and now they're without neither.
And there was an announcement that was made and it was the new general manager was announced a couple of days ago, and I'm trying to find the release on that particular part of the timeline here for Loudoun. I'm trying to figure out what. See, and I'm sitting here. I'm trying to fish through my mail because I saw it come across, and I was like, "Yeah, it's okay." So that did happen. Was it in this one? No, it was not in this one. So it's in here somewhere where you have a new general manager having.
It was Nico Eckhart
right
took over,
right,
and the old general manager, whom I'm blanking on his name, but he was the coach of DC Power before he got fired, and a former DC United defender.
Right.
He was named as the general manager this year. They have had 3 general managers this year because flip-flop, I don't know. I don't know what their plan is. I got to be honest with you. I don't think they have a plan. I think loosely their plan is we have some friends that want jobs and we don't view this as a serious project. That's just my honest to goodness opinion on the matter. Whether that's true or not, I don't have sources that say that, but I'm just telling you how it feels.
Yeah.
And if someone in Loudoun wants to disagree with me on, oh no, we have a plan, well, lay it out for us, because right now it just looks like you're just making decisions because you bought a club and you can.
I found it. It's two paragraphs technically. Announced Nico Eckhart appointed as the club's GM. In this role, Eckhart oversees all day-to-day soccer operations and player personnel matters for Loudoun United, dedicating his focus exclusively to the success of the team. This transition follows Stephen Birnbaum's decision to step away from his position due to increased professional and personal commitments. Loudoun United thanks Stephen for his leadership and contributions during his tenure, wishes him the best in his future endeavors. So there you go. So it was 4 sentences, 2 paragraphs. That was the naming of Eckhart back on the 26th. So that was the last piece of officialness that I got from Loudoun United involving everything there. Standings in the East. We'll take it a conference at a time. Standings in the East, once again, no real shock. Lou City qualified. Lou City's qualified with 22 matches. They're in at 51 points. We just don't know the where. Then Charleston's at 47, and Charleston on the weekend if they lose to Rhode Island, and Rhode Island gets a big win to get them north of the playoff bar, and so Charleston, they had won 3 of 4, and then you now have the loss to Rhode Island, and then it's everybody else. Literally, it is the Chase group that includes Loudoun and North Carolina. And then the chaos begins because you have the rest of the East, 4 teams separated by 5 points north of the playoff bar. But then you have the 4 teams that are out of the playoffs right now, only 4 points from being into the 8th spot right now. So 5 teams, 4 points at the bottom, 8 to 12. You have the 3 teams, 5, 6, and 7, separated by 1 point. Have you seen, and I'll ask this question again in the West, this is probably the most competitive I have seen the East in a long time this late in the year.
Yeah, and we've seen this in the West before. The West kind of tends to fall like this, where somewhere between 5 to 10 are really competing for 4 spots, and those are competing, and the last 2 teams are kind of out of it, just kind of there so they can get their paycheck a little bit. But we've seen this level of chaos in the West. The East, traditionally, you just have 1 team, 2 teams that are just absolutely horrific. In the years past, it was some MLS
or the Miami FC,
or the Miami FC of last year, who is arguably the worst team to ever exist. But that is what it is. No, I have not seen the league this competitive. Where again, I want to shout out our good friend John Morrissey, USL Tactics, where he said in March or April in a Backheeled article, there is not a single bad team in the USL Championship. I mean, can you name a bad team? You can name teams that are worse than other teams, but name a bad team. You really can't. On any given day, anybody can beat anybody. Rhode Island just beat Charleston. And I know that's not a shot at Rhode Island. Rhode Island's a pretty good team. Look at the names on paper. Look at what they did last year. That's a good team. But Charleston is undoubtedly a better team, but they get shut out versus Rhode Island team, who has been strong defensively, have struggled to score. All they needed was 1 goal because they were able to shut down an insane Charleston offense. Any team can truly beat any team this year. And I know everybody says that any given Sunday, yada, yada. But it really is that way this year. And that's for any team, any conference. It's insane.
You end up, before I get into other topics in the East, the Birmingham Legion, which are fairly close to your existence. 8-goal thriller with Orange County. What the hell happened there?
If you didn't see the own goal by Latnovich, just watch it. I mean, it's about a 30-yard banger he was just trying to clear the ball away from Ronaldo Damas and absolutely just puts a perfect floated chip over his keeper's head from 30 yards out. It was insane. Legion have this wonderful ability to either score or defend,
but not both. But not both.
And they don't really do both. And they have conceded the most goals in the USL, at least in the East, I'm pretty sure, because they go on these 10-minute stints where, when I've watched this team, if they can survive 10 minutes after conceding, they have a really good chance of winning. The issue is that when it rains, it pours for the team. And so when one goal is conceded, you can almost guarantee a second one is coming in the next 10. And so if they can survive that 10, they'll be fine. Legion never survived the 10. They were never able to make it past, but you're seeing young stars like a Sebastian Tregarthen really shine bright. Loanies like Dali come through and show why they bring him in. Ronaldo Damas continues to be Ronaldo Damas because, of course, he does. But every single match, I just leave so impressed with a young Seba Tregarthen who used to be out at Asheville City FC. But he is just an absolutely unbelievable player. He's younger than you think he is. I think he's destined to go to a bigger, higher league sometime soon because he is just that level of talent.
Stadium drawings and funding and fundage and ideas in Detroit City and Pittsburgh. Those have come on the table in the last 30 days. I like the idea of the hospital project that Detroit City has come together. It looks like the funding, it might be working its way. And then you had the pretty pictures with Pittsburgh. I kind of like Highmark. I wish that there was more space along the riverside and the train tracks to do something there, but they're kind of hemmed in.
Well, my understanding is that that's all an expansion to Highmark. So the way that I have understood everything is that those things that you're seeing are all expansions to the footprint of Highmark, which it just looks incredible. You get to see the river, you get to see the city skyline, you have the incredibly tall supporters sections, 15,000 seats exactly on the dot, which is important if you want to play Division One. It's amazing. And on the Detroit City side, it's been pretty official for a long time that this was going to happen because they went about it private. They weren't really relying on government money, so it's more certain that it was going to happen. But there was question marks on how it was going to happen because there was at one point where they were projected to be going in, I believe it was $15 million over budget. But then good friends of Limfi come through who happened to sponsor the front of the shirt and said, we'll pay for that if we could put our name on your stadium, in which Detroit said, cha-ching, yes, sir, we'll do that. So, it's awesome. And then out in Sacramento has finalized their plans, and it continues to be great. And you really have to feel for Sacramento fans. It was 10 years of will they, won't they, MLS, USL, we won't exist at all. Stadium, no stadium. Stadium, no stadium. Stadium, no stadium. Hey, the stadium, it's actually happening. It really is happening this time. And where I guess I'm just going to follow it up with, is this a possible future home for the Sacramento Athletics? We'll see. I don't know. I kind of mean that. I kind of don't, but it would be funny. You have Oakland Roots playing at the Coliseum, and then somehow the Sacramento Athletics end up playing at the Republic's new stadium. I don't know. There'd be something funny about that to me.
Circular logic. Yeah.
Circular
logic. And I'm still waiting for the Vegas project to fall down when it comes to John Fisher and the A's. Western Conference, Tulsa. I did not see this in Tulsa at the beginning of the year, where Tulsa is 8 points clear. I did not anticipate that Tulsa would be this kind of a club. What's going on with Tulsa?
8 points clear, possible, could still compete for the supporters or the Players Shield. I mean, is it 9 points back? Yes. But the fact that we're having a conversation about Tulsa, I mean, Luke Spencer is going to win Manager of the Year. My only pushback would be a Ryan Martin because of all the BS he had to deal with. Same reason why I voted for Eamon Zayed last year with what was going on in NOCO. What Luke Spencer has done is remarkable. They have built a club seemingly overnight that is just rock solid. I mean, Kaylor has been great. El Medcar was one of those players from Loudoun that we all thought could be really good, but we just didn't know how it was going to work in Tulsa. It turns out really well. For my own money, I think Sissoko might be the best center back in the league. I think he's just that good. Harvey St. Clair has really turned into what we thought he could be when he first showed up to the USL last year. And then you have Owen Dom, who is good for a banger every 3 days, it feels like, and he plays a solid left wing back. This team is just overall consistent. You can't find a hole pretty much anywhere in the team. And again, you just look at what Spencer has done, and people who don't know USL heritage, right? Luke Spencer, a part of the three-head player coach monster that won Lou City the championship all those years ago. Technically not his first coaching experience because James O'Connor, went to go to Orlando, and who was left in charge?
Yep.
Luke Spencer and the boys. And they won a championship. And you could tell everybody who talked to him said that he was destined to be a coach. I didn't think he would come out this hot, this fast, but you can't help but love the guy.
Sacramento, El Paso is third, which to me is kind of a stunner. San Antonio is a part of the group, but then chaos reigns again. 5 through 12, so that means 4 north of the playoff bar, 4 south of the playoff bar. And that's 8 teams separated by 6 points. And it's Phoenix, Orange County, Lex SC, who's doing well. Just had a 3-game win streak snapped, and New Mexico United. But then on wins, once again, Switchbacks, 27 points below the bar with a 1 win trailing. Roots have kind of hiccuped their way through it. They hadn't won in 3. Then they win last time out. Monterey Bay has only got 2 points in their last 5, and now they're below the playoff bar. But you've got 8 teams separated by 6 points. And last time out, I was buzzing through a bunch of copy, and the Phoenix El Paso match, apparently you had Pomadou Ka had to kind of answer the folks in a very contentious press conference last time out, where Phoenix only ends up with a point when they, should have, to a lot of folks, continued their wins, their modest win streak. You look at this chaos going on in the West, what do you see?
You mentioned Pomadou Ka, where he's had a few of these contentious press conferences, and I'm not sure if they are actually contentious. I think that's just kind of his mannerisms. I think that's just kind of who he is, because I keep mentioning John. But when he went out to Phoenix a few months ago, he went to one of their Jägermeister Cups, and he talked about how after the match, he was in the press conference and how he just wanted to run through a brick wall for the guy. I think that he is just a very intense guy. And when they win, it comes off as motivation. When they lose or they draw a match that maybe they should have won, it comes off as contentious. I think he's just an intense guy. I think just in general, that's just his way of being. And I think it can come off as contentious and like aggressive, but I don't genuinely think that's who he is. So I think I do think that intensity is who he is, but I don't think that was meant to come off as like.
Well, and to your point, I mean, I think that when he is challenged philosophically, he wants to find out where you're coming from when it sit there and recognize it as such. And he wants to expand the conversation outbound a little bit to get to the crux of the issue. And so that to me is like, okay, well, you see this, I see this. What's going on in your head? This is what's going on in mine. And so it's challenging the local reporters to kind of walk through their thought process so he can walk through his, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And you see, and again, I'm pretty close to the situation of Birmingham, right? Where Mark Briggs, especially when they win, is willing to dive through the details of a match and explains what he sees on the pitch and explain all that stuff. And one thing that he's done, especially with me when I ask questions, is to ask more open-ended questions. And that's something that I think allows for more free-flowing conversation, especially in smaller media scrums, right? Not these big media stuff that you have going on. It's like these open-ended questions allow for more conversation. And I feel like people, because I'm not there to write an article, I'm there to produce podcasts, do the listening stuff later. I'm there to basically have a more flowing conversation. Meanwhile, people who are writing articles need to have like definitive answers on things. And I understand how that works. But I do think Palmetto Kai is someone who's also challenging that. But to answer the more broad question of the West, again, no bad team. I think you look at an Oakland Roots where since Phil Albert comes in, they've been defensively solid, barring the Sacramento match. But that is a Northern California like derby stuff going on. Like that's a big rivalry match. Lexington just looks really good right now. It just happened to be that Oakland kind of went through the hard part of their schedule. And I understand that you look at a Pittsburgh, a Charleston, a Tulsa coming up, and it's not going to get much easier. But they have looked like they have found solid ground over Phil Albert. Lexington, they have just eventually figured themselves out. Yes, they lost 1-0 to Las Vegas this most recent time out. But again, you look at a Las Vegas, who I think is the worst team in the West, despite what the points say. And there's still bright spots to be found here. For me, Monterey Bay, the glory that was Campuzano kind of ran out. He could not stand on his head for absolute ever. And that is what it is. Really what this comes down to is that they just don't have the reliable goal scorer. They just don't have the goals to go around. But I still find myself thinking that someone like a Nico Gordon could get my young player of the year. I think he's just that good of a player. He's been that impressive to me. Where I'm looking at is I'm looking at an Orange County, Colorado Springs, New Mexico United, and those are the three teams that I am really circling to follow along because I think that Lexington's safe. I think Phoenix is – I mostly feel like Phoenix is safe. I feel like San Antonio is safe. I feel like everybody north of that Lexington line is safe. So you're looking at Orange County, who was my preseason. They're going to win the West team. I thought their attack was amazing. Their midfield, I still think their midfield's one of the best the USL has to offer. Colorado Springs, I did not believe in the project preseason, but midway through the season, Michael Micheletto has figured out how to be himself again. And you're really seeing what they can be. And then New Mexico United coming off of an amazing season last year, falling apart. I think you're seeing the Laza Hosu Landry, and I think you can tell because Osman Jabang has been good, but he's not Hosu Landry. And I think that's really where you're seeing the downfall. But those are really the players or the three teams that I'm eyeing for those final two spots.
League One, and I didn't realize this. We've been talking about Spokane. Chattanooga unbeaten in their last 5. I didn't realize that Chattanooga in league plays only lost twice this year in 21 matches. I didn't realize that this year.
Yeah. They don't lose. That's the thing. Like they lost to Greenville 3-1 because Greenville was just incredibly motivated that day. I think that was their first match with Toby Sims bringing him in. And then they lost one other time, and it was like beginning of the season stuff, I'm pretty sure. Like to AV Alta when AV Alta decided that they were going to be like the best team in the league. That was it. They just don't lose. And when we talked to Scott McKenzie on the USL Show a few weeks back, I mean, he has talked about how they are just a hardworking, gritty team and it's a good locker room. And you can't say that for a lot of Chattanooga past of it being a good locker room, but it's a good locker room. And they have just nasty defenders. They have defenders who are willing to get stuck in. They're willing to do it. And they have forwards who are willing to do the defensive dirty work. it is a team that is all moving and pushing and going in every way together. When the whole team is defending, it is the whole team. It is not a Mbappe won't drop back and defend and press situation. Everybody drops back and defends. Everyone breaks forward when there's an opportunity. It's impressive. And they are just a team that you just trust at this point to not lose. They may not win every match, but they just simply will not lose. And they were really the antithesis. I can never say the word. Antithesis. That, yeah, too many THSSs.
Right.
Don't try it. Of Tormenta under Cameron, where I keep going back, and it's lived rent free my brain of good friend Luke Martin, who's now at Statesboro Herald. He talked to Cameron, and he said that Cameron said that teams don't win playing possession football in League One. They just don't do it. It's a counterattacking league. Yet he continued to do it. He continued to do it. He continued to do it. Possession, pretty football. That's what he wanted to do in Tormenta. And then Chattanooga is doing the opposite. We'll let you have the ball. We will go studs up to your kneecaps just outside the 18-yard box. We will get a red card because we do it every single game. But because we did that, you're stuck in your final third. We have some fast guys on the wings, and we are just going to counterattack you to death. And they have won, and they've won, and they've won. And Tormenta wasn't. And I kept coming back to that thought of counterattacking teams win this league. And I know that Cameron's no longer at Tormenta. He's going off to different pastures at this point. He stepped down with McKeever stepping up. But that's just something I've really thought about, and how Chattanooga embodies what Cameron said.
5 teams separated by 3 points to get into the playoffs right now. Texoma holds the 8. And I know that there's discussions about Texoma's future and future home and things like that. And with all of that swirling around them, right now they're navigating all the rough spots there in the 8. P-Hop has won 2 in a row, unbeaten in 4 of 5. They're at 27. They're back north of the bar. AV Alta, I think, has kind of hit a wall a little bit. They've only got 3 points in their last 5 matches, and they're in 6th. Charlotte has lost 3 of 4. They've come back to that pack a little bit from 5 to 8. When you look at the rest of what's going on in League One, what sticks out?
Charlotte, I feel like can get back to it, but it almost felt like the Greenville match where they lost 5-4 broke their spirit a little bit, because it's a match they truly should have won, not lose in that kind of fashion. And it's not going to get easier. They have Chattanooga next. They have FC Naples. Their get-right game might be Richmond, who can score goals when they want to. I don't know if you want to get into a shootout with Richmond. Union Omaha looks like they're getting right. Greenville looks like they're getting right. Don't look now, but McKeever's Tormenta looks like they are pretty good at the minute. With the Texoma stuff, you mentioned that. I do want to throw out there that the Texoma stuff, the rumors are out there of the article you're referring to is about them moving possible stadiums, which I mean,
they're still in the same. They're still in the same region. They would just be moving their home base to like Denison or something like that.
Yeah, like kind of whatever. But there was another part of that article that was mentioning player payments not happening, where those are rumors, but they're not from necessarily there's not enough reliable sources on that to take that as fact. Not saying that it's not happening, but I feel that there was not enough reliable sources on that for that have to been published. So I would stay clear of that rumor in particular, but the stadium moving possible. But I do feel like Texoma is your team to look at falling out. I just don't love what they're doing at the moment. AV Alta, maybe. I think Portland Hearts of Pine has a real deal chance of getting into a top 4 because they still have only played 19 matches. They're finally getting to their home stretch where I think they started the first 7 matches away from home. They're about to get they're in the middle of their massive homestand in one of the best atmospheres that the USL has to offer. So it's going to be exciting. I'm very fascinated with what's going on at Tormenta as well with McKeever. I think that is a fascinating storyline that I'm confused by. Again, according to Luke Martin, they did their due diligence on McKeever because he was dismissed from One Knox after, USLPA gets involved, and then he had another incident. He gets released. But Ian Cameron steps down after being, winning them a championship. And McKeever goes back to Mississippi Bria days where Tormenta and Bria were butting heads in the PDL with the likes of Peachtree MOBA, the Birmingham Hammers, now known as the Birmingham Legion, and Memphis City FC. But Bria were the only team that were competing with Tormenta back in those days. And I think that there was a little bit of something in the back of the head of like, we remember that guy. We remember those teams. We remember playing those teams. Those were the only teams that gave us any trouble. That's a good coach. But the history, I don't know if it's worth it. There are players out there who have outwardly said that they will never play for him again. They don't want to be around him ever again. I think it's a fascinating place for Tormenta to be, because he has them winning and playing different kind of football than he ever played in Mississippi and Des Moines or in One Knox. But I don't know. It is just a fascinating storyline that I'm watching.
We'll be down there this weekend. I'm going to catch up with folks and see what the vibe is down there in Statesboro. One other league before you go. It's early returns. 2 matches in. Sporting Jacks is now team number 9 in the GSL. Yep. Like I said, since they ain't paying us, it's just the Super League until further notice. Early returns on what you've seen out of the University of North Florida and Sporting Jacks.
Yeah, Sporting Jacks, I mean, they get a good win, 3-2 over Tampa Bay. And one thing, but really what it kind of comes down to was their 3-1 loss. Actually, it's a DC Power, where DC wins 3-1, but Sporting Jacks was playing almost all of their match in the final third. They were really getting nice passes together. They were stringing together good possessions. They were stringing together good chances, but just didn't finish. And Sporting Jacks did something really risky. They went with college kids, right? Like they went with women fresh out of college, where they could have gotten a bunch of professionals. They could have gotten professionals from the Super League, from people who are teetering on NWSL and other leagues. But they went with the University of North Florida, the University of Florida, a couple of UCF women, a couple USF. I don't think they have any FSU grads, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I don't think they do. But they played really well, despite what the scoreline says. And you saw it with the win over the defending champions Tampa Bay Sun. I think you saw what they can be attacking wise. The back line still has a lot to prove for me, but they're proving to have good attendances. They're proving to be a fun brand of soccer where even if they're not scoring, they're creating chances. It's not boom or bust. Like it's a really free flowing attack that if they can keep it going, this looks like it could be one of the most fun teams to watch in the league, despite going really risky in their roster build. I think DC Power looks like a team that has turned the corner a little bit. I think that at the end of last year, after they were officially eliminated from the playoffs, they started playing really fun soccer. Like they started winning.
They went Leroy Jenkins when they were out of it, right?
A little bit. And it looks like that momentum has continued. Fort Lauderdale, a new look Fort Lauderdale that is without an Addie McCain, looks like it has really – it looks like they haven't really missed a beat. Or do they want to win versus North or against Carolina Cent? Of course they do. But Locklear looks like a true out-and-out 9, and she might be one of the best in this league right now. I mean, she is just that good. And Dallas Trinity, I mean, they kept it together for the most part. Like you see in Allie Thornton, you got I can never pronounce her name.
There you go.
Obugagu over on the left wing. McCutcheon has been great. Foster has been wonderful in net for them. It has been very fun to watch the Trinity. I don't know if they are the best team in the league right now, but they're undefeated, and that counts for something. And last one, Lexington bought literally everybody. They just do that on the men's and women's side. The horse money is awesome, and they just bought everyone. Like they have Bourgeois, they have Johnson, they have Addie McCain, they have reigning MVP Amina Ekic, they have Alameyer. They bought everyone, and they look like a good, fun team that I don't think they're going to be at the bottom of the league this year. There's too much talent on that team for that to happen, but at the very least, they are going to be exciting.
Hit the promo for me, and how can folks catch up with you at the USL Show?
I mean, Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific. We go live. We talk all sorts of ball. And now that the Super League's on, we are covering everything again. Does it make our life a little harder having to watch all those matches? A little bit, but also I was watching those matches anyway. We might as well cover them. So, yeah, it's every Tuesday night. You can catch the podcast players as well if you're not someone who loves a live
Kaylor
chat.
Hodges at the USL Show at USL Tactics with Morrissey, who continues to just sing sad songs every single week and maybe walk off stage after 25 minutes. As always, my friend, great to see you. Thanks for dropping by. We'll catch up with you and find out what happened in September next time you come and visit. There you go.
See you
Kaylor
soon.
Hodges. And like I said, since Kaylor is he's learning folks at very young ages, we have to kind of pick our spots with Kaylor, and we try not to get him mad with his bosses. So we try to, see if he can get an excused absence or something in the morning whenever we can catch up with him. But yeah, what we try to do is we try to do it 30 days at a time with Kaylor, with USL Championship, with League One, with Super League, all of that stuff. So that's your rundown of everything that has happened in those three divisions. And tomorrow, then, Abby, to your point, yeah, Suarez should get fined, not allowed to play for spitting. He won't be the only one in that discussion. We got the tail end of the broadcast from Apple. We'll play it tomorrow. The rundown is going to be Casey White at 9:15. Casey D is going to join us. She's going to talk about Charlotte and New England, and she's going to talk about college and whatever else is on her brain. Bart's going to join us. His voice was not available today after staying up very, very late last night and having a rocking weekend up in Nashville. So we'll go over cards and calls with him tomorrow. And we are going to go over a couple of things with Bart, in addition to what happened at the end of the Leagues Cup match. Short version, in looking at the video over and over again, it's probably going to be Jackson Reagan. And this is the list of folks that I think might get envelopes from whomever is the Leagues Cup organizing committee. It is CONCACAF sanctioned, but it is the Leagues Cup organizing committee. So I don't know where it falls in the purview of discipline. It just says in previous times where there have been disciplinary procedures, it has been the Leagues Cup the Leagues Cup organizing committee, I believe was how it was phrased. So it is the Leagues Cup organizing committee announced the Leagues Cup disciplinary committee decisions. And so the Leagues Cup disciplinary committee are the ones that give all of the decisions one way or the other. But whom the Leagues Cup disciplinary committee is responsible to, what larger entity, that's the bigger question. Because frankly, right now, we don't know. It is CONCACAF sanctioned. Does that mean it is a CONCACAF event? Since you have three teams that are going into the CONCACAF Hemispheric Extravaganza because of what happened yesterday, one of them being LA Galaxy, who ended up beating Orlando. And there's one save if you have not seen it. Keith Costigan and Moadu were on the call yesterday, and Pedro Gallese had a save from inside the net itself. It was a ridiculous sequence. and Gillespie ends up with a save from inside the net. But LAG wins, and so LAG, Messi and friends, and Seattle get your 3 spots into the CONCACAF Hemispheric Extravaganza from now. But we don't know. And so listen, Leagues Cup Disciplinary Committee. Let me see if we can find an answer here. Leagues Cup Disciplinary Committee. All right. So if I could spell disciplinary, I think I left out an I. Okay. So decisions. Okay. Disco from phase 1. All of those notes that got passed forward. But it doesn't ultimately say who the Leagues Cup Disciplinary Committee is ultimately responsible to. It does not say. It just says Disciplinary Committee, Leagues Cup. It does not give an immediate line of, it does not give you a pathway to say, okay, if it is a sanctioned thing, then the disco for the Leagues Cup seems to be their own independent entity. But in looking at what happened late, well, David, the Mascherano cell phone thing. Let me get into because there was a Leagues Cup statement on Mascherano, and I want to get into so Leagues Cup confirmed there was no prohibition against Mascherano using his cell phone after being sent off. Leagues Cup officials confirmed that Mascherano did not violate rules by using his cell phone to talk to his assistant from the stands after being sent off, according to The Athletic. So he has communications talking to Lucas Rodriguez Pagano, phone in hand and speaking. So dictating substitutions, giving instructions from about 10 feet high. So unclear if Mascherano's conduct violated either competition regulations or IFAB's laws of the game. Coaches who are sent off, you can't do it. Now, Leagues Cup spokesperson said, the Inter Miami head coach was located in a space designated according to tournament regulations. Cell phone communications are not prohibited per Leagues Cup regulations. In this instance, Mascherano's actions subject to review by the Leagues Cup Disciplinary Committee. So that was what the Leagues Cup Disco said at the time when we were all sitting there and pointing like the gif of Leonardo DiCaprio and it was in the movie with Brad Pitt where he's like that. We were all doing that. Mascherano, reiterated, Leagues Cup rep reiterated that there were no rules that were broken. Abided by Leagues Cup rules, sitting in the VIP seats above the club bench using his cell phone. Red card issued for offensive, insulting, abusive language towards the referees. So, and it was cold-blooded when they did it, too. He comes out for the second half. They bang him up. Argument into the first half, and so he walks out. Beginning of the second half, bang. Abided by the rules, didn't break any rules. I couldn't be on the bench. I wasn't on the bench. I could have even sat in a suite because it's part of the stands, and I didn't sit in a suite, meaning I could have been next to the bench, in the suite next to the owners. Leagues Cup representatives reiterated Mascherano did not break any rules by sitting in the stands or communicating with the video analyst team via cell phone. Disciplinary committees reviewing will await the resolution before commenting further on the red card. On the phone with video analysts. And so, so he did not violate a Leagues Cup rule at the time when Mascherano was contacting the video analyst via cell phone. So the rub in this is, so let's see, Jackson Reagan, probably for Seattle, because he was shown, I think it was Tomas Aviles, that he had his hands around Aviles' neck. Busquets delivered a short right to Obed Vargas, I want to say. So you're looking at Busquets with a punch. You're looking at Falcone with a chokehold from behind. You're looking at Aviles, who is a part of it. I want to say Cello Weigand was as well. And Suarez. So Suarez, Falcone, Aviles, possibly Weigand, and Sergi Busquets. And then Jackson Reagan. So we'll see what the Leagues Cup Disco has to say and when they say it. So that to me is what it's going to look like. But I think Jackson Reagan doesn't escape anything from Seattle's side. And then you probably have 4 or 5 players from Messi and Friends side that's going to get rung up at some point by the Leagues Cup Disciplinary Committee. But once again, it's CONCACAF sanctioned. Does that mean that CONCACAF sanctioning applies here? So when Messi and Friends are in the CONCACAF tournament, in the Champions Cup, do the suspensions apply there? Or is it just something that's in a Leagues Cup competition itself? Do they consider the Leagues Cup over off to the side, even if it is CONCACAF sanctioned? So that's the big question. And what we may try and do is bring in the sporting director of the Leagues Cup to kind of get a postmortem on the tournament and ask that question in and of itself. Is the Leagues Cup autonomous and in a bubble, or are they tied to CONCACAF? That's the biggest question that's here. Okay, let's say hi to everybody, and we'll go through one more run. Bayern Munich has agreed to a deal to sign Nico Jackson. Wolves have signed striker Tolo Orokodare for $23.4 million from Genk. As I'm sitting here and looking at the lower third, the rolling crawl. Fulham agree on the £22 million deal for Chelsea with Tyreek George. So that we know is we talked about that in hour number 1. Bournemouth have signed defender Veliko Milosavljevic. There we go. Veliko Milosavljevic. Liverpool, £35 million deal to sign Mark Gahey from Crystal Palace. Like I said, I'm rolling through the headlines here, so pardon me as I roll through them here. Okay, and so those are the headlines now. All right, let's say hi to everybody, and then one more time through all of the news for transfer deadline day, and then we will be back at it again tomorrow. Once again, Casey White at 9:15, Bart, if he's got a voice, at 10, Jason Stevens, as we continue looking at equity funds, and this time it'll be equity funds and multi-club ownership model. We'll get into that with Jason and discuss that in the last half hour of the show tomorrow. Morning, David. Morning, D. Graham. Let's see. Yeah, reffing down here. We got into the whole thing with Jaden Hibbert. Good Lord. Yeah, Nashville flopping. Yeah, all of that stuff. Tackle, out of bounds, late clearance. Yeah, violence was fine, but tactical fouls were not. Morning, D. Graham. And yeah, I've got to go back and check the PK in the Kansas City Current match. Yes, Ropes, VAR with Chelsea and Fulham was miserable. Let's see. Morning, Abby. Yeah, all of her teams won. All of Lee Corso's teams won, by the way, on Saturday. All the teams he was a coach for in college football, they all won. I think he was 8 for 8. That was strong. Let's see. So, David, again, all yellows seem to be tactical and procedural, where Nashville's extra violence earned them nothing. Thierry seemed soft, Miggy soft, Amador soft. Yep. Heath Bradley, good morning. Sleesh suspended. Commentators said it on the broadcast. Let's see. Bradley got Carlton's jersey. Came over after the match. Okay, cool. Let's see. So, morning, Abby. Morning, Lokeville. And, yeah, the whole we had those matches that were outside of Kennesaw that could have, while it was great to be up at Athens, and you had to go to Orlando City B, that was a home match. You were the home team, even though you were in Kissimmee, Florida. Might come back to be a bit of a difference. D. Graham, Dahlkemper, and Oshala out. Excuse absences, as well as Alyssa Thompson in that one. Let's see. And that's the article in the Telegraph. And, yeah, and Abby Suarez should get fined, not allowed to play. Then, yeah, it will be a packed one tomorrow. It'll be definitely a packed show tomorrow. Let's see. Statement essentially, no rule on the field. Yeah. And so, yeah, David, what I may do is try and catch up with, because we had the GM on after phase 1. And so to be able to catch up with him and kind of get a postmortem and find out about the line of the path of the disciplinary committee, find out who they're ultimately responsible to, that would be interesting. And legitimately, it could be one of those Cuauhtemoc Blanco situations like the U.S. Open Cup, where last match that Cuauhtemoc Blanco had for Chicago Fire in U.S. Open Cup, he's like choking people. He choked a guy on the sidelines, and then it was, and I think Clint Dempsey, I think, has a suspension that he would have to serve if he ever came back for Open Cup or anything like that. So, are they off to the side? Are they their own thing, or does it apply to CONCACAF? And then if Suarez ends up retiring after this year, goes home, since he's in the last year of a contract, then he would have the same kind of element hanging over any kind of participation he would have in the tournament going forward, which whether CONCACAF or Leagues Cup, if that was the way that they were looking at stuff. So, okay, let's go through transfers as we know them and what else is being discussed. Milosavljevic, by the way, is an 18-year-old center back from Red Star Belgrade. So keep an eye out for that. Victor Lindelof has the picture where he's signing. Let's see. Buonanotte is holding up a jersey. He is not signing. Let's see. Bayern obliged to pay more than £70 million for Nico Jackson. Bayern agreed to pay a £14.2 million loan fee with an obligation to buy for a further 56.2 based on appearances. Total deal worth just under 70.5. Chelsea obviously will be pleased with that one. Gahey and the medical agreement over a fee appears now in place for Gahey to complete the formalities of his move to Anfield. We mentioned Buonanotte. Arokadare from Genk, £24 million there, 4-year deal, 12-month option. Big addition for Vitor Pereira, fighting off interest for Jurgen Strand-Larsen. You have him and Arokadare now up top. 23 goals in all comps, claimed the Golden Boot last year. So Crystal Palace, once again, Convo leaving to go sign in Ligue 1 with Toulouse. Not a direct replacement for club captain Gahey, has signed from Toulouse. So Convo, 19 years old, is in. Gahey, not a direct swap out for that. Igor Julio from Brighton. Convo is a major coup, given how strong the market was for him. It's going to cost around £21 million. 20 senior matches in France, 14 in Ligue 1. But the U20 International has been a professional since June of last year. Wasn't even a regular for the Toulouse side last year. Oliver Glasner has been high on him. Tyreek George, we mentioned, that's at $22 million. Akanji, close to a move to Inter Milan after talks with Manchester City over a deadline day move. Part of the treble-winning squad 3 years ago. Unused sub this year. Pep Guardiola's always insisted players could leave for the right deal if they wanted to seek regular first-team football. And let's see. One more time through the Twitters, and we'll see if our buddy Ben Jacobs has added anything since we last caught up with him. But once again, if you've got Peacock, they're running the Sky Sports deadline day show. That's going on right now. Crystal Palace exploring a late window move for Spurs Manor Solomon. And it is also kind of quiet. So Vissa passed the medical. 4 years, £55 million package. Leeds have had a loan offer rejected for Fulham's Harry Wilson. Unclear if Leeds are set to make an improved offer. We mentioned Luke Wolfenden moving from Ipswich to Coventry for £4 million. Medical's ongoing. Portsmouth close to loaning Connor Chaplin. Hincapie passed his Arsenal medical within the hour. And Liverpool once again confident on Mark Gahey from Crystal Palace. The Elliott move to Aston Villa now complete. The loan move, $35 million with an obligation to buy. And I think that is it. I think we are up to date. Matt O'Reilly from Brighton set to join Marseille on a straight loan. We mentioned Buonanotte. We mentioned Victor Lindelof at Villa. Tyreek George for 22. We are caught up. Okay, so now here's the deal. Tomorrow, once again, Casey White, Bart, if he's got a voice, and then Jason Stevens as we continue our Economics of Sports series and find out about what's going on when it comes to equity funds like Bowley Clear Lake owning within the multi-club ownership model. We'll find out why that became attractive, how interwoven it all is amongst all of these equity funds, and how funds are sent from one place to another, how equity funds are partners with one another, and where all of this money goes. And that'll be wrapping up the show tomorrow. Once again, Tyler and Dylan on Wednesday, Nino and Nico on Thursday, and then it is hopefully our friends from Beyond Goals and also our friends from Major League Soccer. Truncated schedule this weekend. You can opt to play through an international break. 8 teams have decided to do that. 4 matches this weekend, and we will break it all down. That is a rather big Monday. Thanks to Kaylor, thanks to Abe, and thanks to y'all. Transfer deadline day, the Atlanta United win, Atlanta United 2 win, Leagues Cup chaos at the end, LA Galaxy toward the bottom of the West. They get into the CONCACAF hemispheric extravaganza. And we back at it again tomorrow. KCD, Bart, Jason Stevens. Thanks for hanging out with us for another go-round of SDH AM. Since it is the end of the show on a transfer deadline day, may your team chase after and acquire who you want them to for the rush overseas and the beginning of a new season. Play it safe, everybody. Mucha platiel. Since it is the end of the show, it means I get to do this. Back at it again, a little less than 22. Play it safe, everybody. Mucha platiel. See you tomorrow.